He's off screen. Oh.
Hey.
that was an instant forehead we just brought to you. That was live.
Yes, that's Joe Mann's cameo right there. That's all the more we could afford him for this morning. So
appreciate you stopping by. Have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday. There you go.
Did you get all that technology working over there, Joe?
Nope.
No.
That was his cameo.
That was it.
The cameo of Joe Mann. That's all you get.
There he is.
Right.
Man.
Large and in charge, man.
You got your volume in the background. One of these days, we're going to hit this go live button and technology is going to be like perfect.
What are we like week 3 here? So
yeah,
we'll be all right.
You don't want to set the bar too high because then, at that point, you got to get high. As long as we got several months now, we can just build it up,
Well, you know what? The whole point of the live stream in the first place is that it's real. You know what I mean? It's going to have, it's not a polished. It's not bloopers. It's not it's not a polished, produced, formal kind of thing. I mean, it's a couple dudes in green chairs and another dude still in Ohio because a hurricane decided to come hang out with us. I always say it's funny. I see all these Zoom calls now, and I see them like these huge setups behind them and cameras now, right? Yeah. I'm talking about the big cameras, and I'm just like, I'm so amazed that you guys use this free service this way. Like it's like that's exactly right. This huge post-production and pre-production of a free call. Yeah. And you're sitting there going, okay, all right. Like, all right. No, this is real. Like this is real. Like we don't need the cut. Yeah. Literally, we have webcams, and for Icon, we have an iPad. Yeah. So it's good. I should probably mute my phone, huh? You know how it goes, man. So, so here's what's important. The people need to know this today. Today we have Pat Kelly with us, author or co-author of Millennial Boom. Correct. This guy's got a produce podcast. Correct. All kinds of stuff going on. We were supposed to have Roy Browning here with us in this room somewhere. We didn't leave enough room between us, but there was a hurricane or storm or something that came through and canceled Roy's flight. So, in true 2020 fashion, plans got shook up and thrown out a little bit. So here we are doing the webcam version. Well, the show goes on. The show must go on, man. That's what we do. I'm just saying. So word of the week this week. We said last week we were thinking about putting a bunch of words in a jar and pulling them out. And normally Roy and I come up with the word pass. So Patrick has seen at least one of our word of the week videos. And so last week I invited all of you to come join us one by one, to come join us on our word of the week. Yeah. And Patrick was the first to jump in on that. I'm here. So here he is. And so with that, as our special guest, you get to pick the word of the week. Oh man, now I got to think of a word. No, now you got to come up with a word. No, I say something that's relevant during this time, Joe, Roy. I think my word, and I think this is my word for, not the week, but it's been really a couple months. Empathy. I mean, empathy for everything. Yes, 100% applicable on all levels. I think a lot of people have lost touch with empathy lately. Some others have been looking for empathy, right, and need it. Yes. And so, Roy, what's the rule if you come up with the word? You have to go first in describing what it means to you. Yeah, no, okay. I think that's great. So if I look at empathy, I look at a little bit with emotional intelligence. I look at how we treat people, how we look at our surroundings, right? I mean, you can look at it, the regular definition of empathy, but I take it into consideration of let's look at our people, how we describe them, how we talk about them, how we see things in relationships. All of these things come with emotions. Absolutely. All of them. And if we don't have empathy towards each other, all it's going to lead into is a division, which we have seen over so many years, regardless of any political statement or anything, right? Just division of people. And I just think that right now, in the time today or 4 years ago, it's like, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. Yeah, right. Right? And today. Right. So it's like 20 years ago, we should have been doing this. And so we need to do it more today. And we need to talk and chat and listen. And really, I say, love our people. 100%. Couldn't agree more. Roy, you get to chime in next, buddy.
All right. The way that you're wording that, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by Woodrow Wilson. And that is that if you come at me with fists doubled, I can guarantee that my fists will double just as quickly. But if we sit down and take counsel together, we'll find that we're not so far apart as we once believed. And I think that's one of the big things about empathy is that when we look at the world through the lens of the other person, Dale Carnegie says in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, that I would be exactly who they are if I lived their life. And so we have to respect that. We have to understand that, walk a mile in someone else's shoes. Right. And I love empathy. And obviously there's some overlap between sympathy and empathy. Right. But that idea of looking at somebody else from their point of view and understanding what they're going through before you just spout out anything that you're going to say. And those are the biggest things that I think of. Joe, what about you?
Yeah, so empathy for me, and I've always tried to discern, like, especially when there are multiple words to describe the same thing. So I try to look for the difference between the two. Like, that's just the way my mind works. So when I first heard the word empathy, I said, well, why do we need the word empathy if we already have sympathy as a word, right? And then so I started personally, again, this doesn't go to like the textbook definition, but personally, what does sympathy mean to me and what does empathy mean to me, and how can I, distinguish the two as different things because they could play different roles. So sympathy is saying, hey, for me, this is just for me, is like saying, wow, that kind of sucks. But empathy for me is actually taking that extra step to feel what that other person is feeling.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's not just saying, dang, that probably sucks. I've never been there before. I don't understand, but it probably does suck, right? But empathy, I want to feel the emotion that you're feeling. Maybe it's because I've been there, or maybe I've not been there, but I've experienced something that's equally painful or equally traumatic or whatever, and I bring myself to that deep place from my experience so that I can be on that level with you, so that I can truly empathize, feel your pain, not try to give you the solution if you don't want a solution, right? But really feel it with you. And when you're on that level, I think, of emotion with somebody, you don't even have to talk, right? Like, they can feel that you feel what they're feeling, right?
I like that.
And so for me, that's what empathy is feeling that emotion that the other person is feeling rather than just trying to understand it or acknowledge it. That's deep.
I love it.
That's deep for a Thursday morning, 8:30 in the morning.
I'll take it.
Hey, go on, man.
I'll take it at midnight last night, to be real. But I think it's so true. I think that, there is the sympathy and empathy. I can honestly say sometimes I don't have sympathy for people.
Sure, right.
Right? I mean, sometimes I don't. But when I get that call, or when I, even in business, with business, I mean, think about it. There's tons of things, right, that HR doesn't have to handle if we were to be able to talk to each other in the right way and be able to feel these options with people, because a lot of times we see it as just that black and white. There's no gray area in this. And when you get that, hey, this is the issue I'm having, or this, and like I said, the biggest thing I always like to say when someone says you want to walk in someone else's shoes, like, sure, if you can fit into size 13, you can try. And that's that. What does that do for anybody, right?
Right.
It doesn't do anything. You're going, no, it doesn't do. You have to sit there and look and go, but what if I did now scale down to a size 8? What if I did scale down to, because like I said, I look at these things like I see over everybody's head. I've told you this in my head. I always see above everybody because I'm 6'1", I have huge feet and huge hands. But then I do think about that sometimes. I think about, I'm like, what if I was the shorter gentleman playing basketball, not the guy that was always the tall guy? What if I was? And I sit there and go, how would my life be affected by that?
Definitely be different.
What would it be if I, you know what I mean? All these different things. Heck, you know how my life would be different if my shoe size was a size 8 to a 9? I'd be able to find every shoe in the store at all times. I would never have to order a shoe online. But some people, and this is so crazy, this is a small part of it, but some people don't even understand that.
Right.
And that is just empathy in itself on a small level, going, you don't even you empathize the fact that I can't even buy shoes in the store.
That's such a good point. And I think, Roy and I were just talking about this the other day, and I'm not going to take this down a political rabbit hole because I don't think we need to do that. But here is a fact. When you have just in an election, right, where the results are reported to be so close, what that means is regardless who the winner, the other half of the population is not going to feel served, if you will, by the outcome. And that's in anything. I mean, if we were voting on anything, if it's a 50-50 split or close to it, it's, the result's not going to accommodate the desire of the other half. So how do we, as a nation, right? How do we as human beings say, I got to understand the other side. I got to understand the other half of the population. We got to get along. We have to empathize. So if you're the loser in a situation, how do you empathize with, hey, this is their time, right? How do we get along? And then if you're the winner, how do you win? How do you accept that victory, humbly, if you will, and with empathy for the other team, right? Like imagine two sports teams making it to the championship and winning by a point. You always see them high five and hug the other team at the end of that game, right? Because that's sad. It's sad. But hey, good game. Get over here. And then they all, the coaches and quarterbacks always come to the corner or the center of the field. And they have that moment. And I think if maybe we could do that as people, as Americans.
I wish we could.
That's empathy, though.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could. Roy, what do you think, man?
Well, it's interesting. You kind of brought up that HR conversation and things. And, what I think of when I can sympathize with you, but I'm not going to change my policy for you. You know what I mean? So, you think about that situation. Maybe it's a customer service rep in a store or it's your HR manager or whatever. I sympathize with your situation, but it's not going to change the rules.
Correct. That
is somebody who put up a wall in between them and the person that they're talking with. When I was a lead at Sears, oh my gosh, 17 years ago.
What company?
16 years ago.
Some people watching this on Instagram might not know that might not know that company.
You gotta remind me to tell you a story after your story. I got to tell you the best. Like this. Anyway, go ahead. I got a story though for you from last night.
There were countless people that came in there just because they wanted to yell at somebody because they just wanted to be heard. Yeah. And the best manager that I ever saw was the person who sat down with them and said, legitimately tell me what the concern is. And they were not sympathetic with that person. They were empathetic 100% of the way because they cared enough about the person to listen. And 9 times out of 10, that person left without a refund, without, threats of lawsuits, without demanding the store manager. None of that stuff happened because they literally saw the world from their perspective and they were willing to listen and in some cases willing to fight for that person. People want an advocate. When you have empathy, then you want to be an advocate for that person and you want to be able to help that person. I can sympathize with you. That situation stinks. Have a great day. And it's like this wall, almost like a wall of cynicism that blocks us from wanting to feel what the other person is feeling. And that feeling is the difference between the empathy and the sympathy. But when we empathize, we now have a partner in the sympathy.
I agree. That's what I was going to say too, is when just hearing you say that, and it reminds me of some of the consulting gigs that I've done, is like when you walk in, it's all sympathy and everybody is out for themselves. And I think that's the problem with business. No one teaches in college or in school or anywhere in life of how to treat your other spouse or there's no classes on that. Everything is how you do it in your life. And it's so interesting that you go to work and your colleague, you're sitting there going, how do I talk to my colleague? Because we've been told, do not get into personal feelings with Joe. Don't talk about those things with Joe. Right. Because those will translate into that HR things. And I think that I had I'd say a bad consulting gig in 2018 that lasted not even 3 months, but that was it. Like you'd go to talk to someone thinking the empathy exchange was there. And it was just like what you said. It was hey, I get it, but no, this isn't how it's working. And I'm going, and no one was a partner there. Right. Everybody in the organization was Oh, what would you say, Joe? Yeah, Joe had a white shirt on today with orange sleeves. Make sure, we don't don't do that on Thursdays. Like everything, there was
no pick on me, Patrick.
Right?
Man, come on.
There you go. There was no empathy involved. It was all like, it was sympathy. They would say, hey, I understand.
Yeah,
we totally get what you're going through. And then they would say, but this is the organization.
Right.
But I think that happens a lot at a lot of different companies. That even the president of the organization, they'll sit there and say, welcome to the organization. It's great to have you, blah, 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 blah. Really, they don't care.
Yeah.
They're going back to their desk and then the other person's starting a job. And then if that person gets fired, it didn't work out. I mean, I think that happens too much in our business world.
Absolutely, 100% too much, because in a world of absolutes, there's no room for common sense. And that is a problem.
You've said that so many times, too.
I say it all the time because it's so true, man.
I've seen that on your Instagram a lot.
All the time. You can't say it enough times. And Roy and I, we dug into a book called The Customer Service Revolution. He's got to refill the coffee. The Customer Service Revolution by John DeJulius. And one of the first things that he addresses in that book is you cannot treat your customers as if they're trying to work you over. Because you come into that with an attitude as that they're already trying to work you over, you're already going to look at yourself, you're going to be on the defense the whole time. And you're never going to empathize with a customer. And I think that that's a big problem. So, Roy, when you were talking about the customer coming in and us empathizing with the customer, that's a two-way street, man. As consumers, when we come in and into an organization, if we feel like we've been wronged, whether by a policy or a person, we have to come in there looking for a solution and empathizing with the manager who's maybe bound by policy.
Yep.
Right? Because the manager doesn't know who I am. He's not trying to work me over per se.
You're just a customer.
Maybe he's got a bad day or whatever, but for the matter of fact, like, he's trying to keep his job and hopefully trying to keep his job or do a good job. And if we come in there empathizing with the position that of the person that we're trying to get some sort of result from, I think that the empathy is a two-way street.
I agree.
We cannot forget that. I learned that in my customer service class and during my associate degree program.
Yeah.
It was one of the first things that we learned was you need to solve this problem with a level head.
Yep.
You need to come in and say, hey, I understand it's the policy. Here's what I would see as a practical solution.
Yep.
Is it a refund? Is it a whatever?
Whatever. And I agree, Roy, you said, Sears, let's go back. I worked at Walgreens when I was a kid. And I remember being 16 years old working the cash register. It's so crazy how they throw you into the wolf's den. I start my first day, they throw me on the cash register and they're like, you have to say, welcome to Walgreens, like my first day. And I'm just like, what am I doing here? But you're right. There was a policy with disgruntled customers. And I worked in the pharmacy as well. So they were like, listen, there are going to be anywhere from drug addicts to real people looking for needs. And you have to determine that. Because there are going to be people, oh my gosh, I'm so sick. Can you please refill my Vicodin? Trust me.
Right.
You saw that a lot. And they literally told us, they were like, listen, you have to really have empathy with the person, understand their needs, but then we have to understand if the doctor didn't refill it, you're not getting anything. But we'd have to somehow portray that to them. And like you say, that manager, you can't give somebody drugs.
Right.
That doesn't have a prescription.
That's just law. That's not even your policy.
It's not even common sense. That's just the law. But you would have to sit there and go, listen, I understand you're sick. We understand your problems. And I'm like a 17-year-old kid trying to tell someone why they can't have their prescription drug. But you're so right. And even as a young kid, we had to task ourselves through that and then travel through that and then figure out, how am I going to get this person to come back, though?
Do either of you think that it's just crazy absurd that you take the most junior, unskilled person with the least amount of experience and put them in front of the customers?
That's what we do.
That's the dumbest thing ever. I don't understand.
And the pharmacist behind closed doors, and you have to say, what? Excuse me, I'd like to speak to the pharmacist.
Yeah.
The subject matter expert at the entire store is barred by a plexiglass and 17 other people to talk to. The only guy that has a PhD in the store, you can't get to. You can't even talk to him.
Right.
Like you got to have permission to talk to that guy.
It's insane.
Well,
I love Go ahead, Roy. I was going to say, I love that they gave you empathy training, though.
They did. No, Walgreens did. They literally did. I will say Walgreens was one of the best jobs I had at 16. This is before they had 3,000 stores. This is when they were a lot smaller. Fantastic company, fantastic training program, all on VHS. All on VHS. But yeah, it was great company. Great company.
Yeah, you know, you talk about that two-way street and kind of coming back to, you talk about there's no spouse training. So, you know, if you want to get into a fight with your spouse, this is a good experiment. Try to be sympathetic with your spouse. Oh, wow, honey. Yeah, your day really did suck.
It doesn't work.
No. If you want real life, immediate feedback, you can try that with your wife, and she'll look at you, and depending on how your wife responds, you'll get some sort of a reaction, and I guarantee it won't be the one that you want.
I was going to say, if she's a different ethnicity, she might speak at you in a different language that you have no idea what she just said to you. You knew there was a cuss word in there. You're like, I know that word. You're like, I knew. Wait.
Is that your personal experience?
Yeah, maybe. I'm just saying, it's all out there. But yeah, I agree with you. I think you're 100% right. And I say spouse because I tell my wife and I have this relationship. My wife and I have been together for 20 years since we were in high school, and we've been through a lot of different things. And there is no training on this. There's no, like I said, there's marriage counseling when you screw up. Isn't it funny? There's marriage counseling when you screw up, but there's not this marriage training of how to be, you know, emotional with each other, how to love each other. I mean, all these different things, compromise. I mean, what's that? Yeah, exactly. Like, what do you mean? I'm going to go here if you go here. What are you talking about? I'm going to do this if you do this. There's all these different things that you can learn these things, but there's classes that teach you that at college more than there's classes anywhere else that you can find that'll say, hey, come to this spouse training. And trust me, I'm not going to say no, but I know there are some out there. Trust me, there's some at the churches. They are everywhere. But the last time I checked at the California State University, Fresno, where I went, there's not a degree on how to treat your spouse. Mm-hmm. There's a degree on sales. There's a degree on marketing. There's a degree in all these aspects of how to get a job, right?
Right.
There's marriage counseling, right? You can be a counselor, you can be all this, but how does that relate? And you said it, like that spouse interaction. So it's always a building, ever-going experience that's our own story. Just like our brands, just like our companies, right?
Yeah.
Just like what we do in life.
Yeah. Dr. Gary Chapman is one of my favorite authors in terms of relationship. And, you know, he talks a lot about how you're building a relationship with your spouse and understanding their love language and understanding how you talk with them.
Languages.
You know, he encourages you to go on a marriage retreat at least once a year, if not twice a year, to reinvest in that relationship and keep it growing. Isn't
it funny, Roy? We do company retreats. We do all these different things. We meet up at trade shows with all of our buddies.
Yep.
And it's funny because I'm doing a trade show next year, and I finally told not the trade show, but like my colleagues, I go, hey, I'm getting my own hotel. I'm doing this. They go, why? I go, I'm bringing my whole family. So I'm going to bring the entire family to Los Angeles if we meet in person. But my son's going to the trade show with me. I'm going to have my own booth, or, kind of media center and all that. But I'm sitting here going, I want to share these experiences with them. I can get drunk and go out to dinner any night of the week, right, Joe? I mean, it's true, right, Roy? We can do that with friends and colleagues, but when you start bringing in that family part into your business too, people they see it and go, there's a little bit of more care there.
Well, and you know what's interesting about that, especially along the word of the week is empathy.
We are empathy.
So along the lines of empathy, and I think there's a direct correlation between that, because I've traveled so much for work in my career, and my family just sees me leave, have a good time. Wife is left at home with the kids. I come back with a smile on my face because I had a good event or got a lot done. And it looks like it's all fun and games. It's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. But you can't explain that to someone who's been locked in the house with the kids, and you can't explain that to kids who miss their dad. So not this year, but the year before last, like 2019, I took my son, and my wife's been to a couple of trips, so she gets but it's not until she gets it where she's actually come back and said, wow. I'm like, no, we've got 3 more things to go to. She's like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, it is like,
she's like, it's noon. And you're like, yeah, we've already done 6 meetings.
Yeah. And it'll be, or it'll be, we've just done dinner after we've, got up and we did emails for 3 hours. And then 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at the convention center, and then doing all that. And then we got to break out for a lunch thing and then work the event some more and then go to dinner with people. And the dinner is a 3-hour event, especially like in LA or whatever, right?
Maybe.
It's a 3-hour, right? And then after that, there's
reception,
cigars or reception or whatever,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So anyway, my point to empathy was
I hear it.
When she got to come with me, she got to see it, and now she sees it differently when I do leave. She can empathize.
Does she not want to go now?
Well, no, she wants to go still, but at least when I come back or while I'm gone, like it's not, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just busy. And because people say, how could you be busy for 20 of the 24 hours in this day? No, it's literally you are.
I am.
But she can empathize now because she's been there and she's seen it. And so that experience that I was talking, I could put myself in those shoes and my kids. So it was 2019, I think it was, I took my son on a trip to Philadelphia. He worked the booth with me.
Yep.
And he got to see, and then we went to dinner. And then we went, and he's like, it's midnight and we're finally getting back to the room. And now he's 17 now. So, he was 15 or 16 at the time. 15 at the time.
He's sitting there going, man, Dad's
working. Dad's grinding. Dad's hustling.
It is.
And there was a little bit of independence that he had because I'm like, we're in Philly. And I'm like, yeah, just go get something to eat then. And he's, it was kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But now he sees Dad leaving a little bit differently because he knows what Dad's doing. And now he can empathize. He now asks me when I get back, how was the event? How was, questions.
Did you go all night? Were you not tell, I totally agree. I mean, it's funny. So, I did a lot of business in Costa Rica with pineapples. A lot of pineapples I've imported into the United States. And it was interesting because my wife would always be like, I want to go to paradise. Like, I want to go to paradise. And I'm sitting there like, when I would first go, the Costa Ricans are very different. If any Costa Ricans listening out there, you guys are awesome. You guys are just very different because you guys like to work 28-hour days. There's only 24 hours in the day, but the Costa Rican mentality, it's like they're picking you up at 4 to 5 in the morning. You're driving 3 hours to the nearest farm after, if you go into San Jose, Costa Rica. So you'll drive 3 hours to a farm, right? 3 hours on back roads, not the I-4, not the 5, not the turnpike. I'm talking about Ocala back roads.
Yeah.
Right? You guys know, okay.
I'm familiar with it.
All right. I knew you guys would, but that's where it is. And you're sitting there going over these hills, or if it rains, and you're sitting there going, you're stuck in a freaking car for 6 hours of the day. For 6 hours of the day, you're driving. Right. Then you get to the farms, which you might have 4 to 5 farm tours throughout the day. You're drinking coffee all day long, just trying to stay hyped up because you're in a car. Keep in mind, these cars are like the Kia trucks.
Right.
So all these different things, right? Long story short, at the end of the day, I finally take my wife to paradise. And our stops, where we have pictures of this, stop at that waterfall. We take a picture by the waterfall because she's like, all we're doing is working and going to pineapple farms. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to sell pineapples. Like, and to me, I see a pineapple farm, and that's like my wife seeing a beautiful waterfall. Yeah. To me, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at these 400 hectares of pineapples, and look at it. Oh, these are almost, blooming and boom, right? And she sees like, okay, are you making this deal happen? Like, let's get back. But I totally agree with you. It's like now my wife has been with me to Costa Rica, China, Japan, Korea, and my kids have been there as well. And my wife doesn't want to go with me now. She's like, I've been to those things with you. I understand. And she's like, and that's not for me. Yeah. She's like, but I know you have to do that. So it's so true, Roy. Like right now, it's like if I go on a trip, she tells me, call me at 10 p.m. before you go to bed. Yeah. Because she knows now, like, you're just freaking working all the time. Right. You're not even, like, you might be laughing and having fun and having a beer at lunch. She's like, but you were talking nothing but pineapples, container ships. Like my wife's like, you are not what I expected. Then you spend a couple extra days back at the resort and you do your thing, get the massages, and she's sitting there like, are you ready to go home? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. It's like, but that empathy right there, and that's the spouse empathy, right? Because that too is very part in your business world, that if your wife can't have empathy for your job and she just sympathizes or says, oh, you just get to go have fun all the time. I mean, those are things that and you have to step out and say, okay, wait a minute. My wife's a teacher right now. What is she dealing with during school? Exactly. I'm a businessman. What am I dealing with? And then that comes to the compromise. You have to listen to her, listen to me, and talk. Same thing in business. Yep. I don't care if you're doing a multi-billion-dollar deal, right? And this is what I say to everybody. Your wife or your spouse is more important than a billion-dollar deal. So why would you treat a billion-dollar deal more important than you would treat and compromise with your spouse?
The most important relationship. The reason you do the work you do is to provide for those people who are most important to you, and you can't neglect that. I think that, and we're almost out of time, but so we'll all go around the horn here and recap. But I think that the thing that we cannot forget right now is the empathy for our children.
Yes.
It's not an extra vacation for them. You were just telling me about they've already gone through this, and his kids are home from because we had a storm come through. My kids are home because of that too right now. This is an extra vacation time. We need to. It's been so long since any of us, the three of us, have been kids, and it's hard. Like we used to like snow days. Like that was the time to get out and do stuff. But over this, as much as we've had, like
kids don't want it.
They don't want this. My daughter's like, I didn't want to have to stay home. She's missing Spirit Week because homecoming's this weekend. Picture Day was supposed to be today. These kids are missing out. We have to remember as parents, we need to get down and empathize with our kids, understand them, feel their feelings, and respond accordingly to that. We have to respond to our spouses who are staying home with those kids and keep them. Your wife's a teacher. Roy's wife is a teacher. Like we have to empathize with them because they're doing stuff and experiencing things that we're not. Like I still get up and go to my office. I come here, I hang out with Patrick. I'm talking to Roy all day. These are my people. This is my family, but we can't neglect the real family.
The real family, yeah.
So that's empathy for me. Roy?
Well, I won't go into any of the stories that were percolating in my brain, but I love that we called out the fact that not only do our wives need to empathize with us when we're out on the road, but we need to empathize with them when they're back at home, and what are they going through? They just spent an entire 14-hour day with kids screaming and yelling and fighting. And, they're trying to teach school. They're trying to, make meals. They're trying to clean the house. They're trying to everything that they do, whatever that is. And, it's very abrasive to call at 10 o'clock at night and be like, you would not believe what I did today. I got to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
I mean, even at 5 o'clock when you come up, these days come upstairs or come home, it's like, I'm like, oh man, this day was so hard. She's like, you would not believe what happened in this house today.
That's
so
awesome.
I love that. But I mean, I do think that empathy to me is putting myself in the other person's shoes and really trying to feel what they feel and understand where they're coming from beyond just saying, yeah, it was hard. Yeah. Well, I can be sympathetic with you. I've never experienced that personally. So, I wouldn't know, and really becoming a person and, dare I say a friend to this person for the time that we're interacting together.
Right. 100%. All right, Patrick, you got the first word, so you get the last word.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously with empathy, it's all about love to me. And I say it like that because we have to show and embrace, love. And I say it in a weird way. It's like, oh, what do you mean? But no, it's like, yes, we have to be there for other people. Just like Roy said, it's just like stepping into their shoes or however you want to call it. I just think empathy is about connecting with someone's emotional intelligence as well. And being able to say, hey, listen, I get it. I understand. And I feel you. And not giving that extra, this is what I can do to make it feel better for you. No, right. It's almost like I say sometimes is just being. Just be sometimes with them and with anybody, with your colleague, with your coworker, with your friend, with your partner. Just be sometimes, and you will absorb that emotion from them.
Yeah. And
you will create an everlasting, authentic relationship with people that you never knew, and even broader with someone you do.
Man, so deep. You just made me think, we got to go, but you just made me think of one more thing. And so I got to ask the question, what about those people that you can't empathize with? Let me finish, because you've never been there. Like, I've never been a young black man growing up in America. So I can't relate. I can just empathize. I could try my best to understand. I've never been a woman, a mother. I can try to understand, but I've never been there. So I can't. So I wonder if that's just the role that sympathy plays. And there's not a response required there, but it's just kind of where I am, you know, man. I'm like, there's so many people where I want to empathize, but I look at them, I'm like, I can never imagine. Like, I'm not you. I don't know.
I think that's all mindset. I don't think I have an answer for that either, because I watch a lot of A&E, and I watch a lot of that, and like the I Am a Killer series. And I know that's like really crazy to say, but I watch these things. And even my brother and I were talking just the other day, and he goes, we can't think like that because that's not our mindset. Right. We can't. It actually, sometimes if you try to think in those ways, it makes your brain hurt. You can actually give yourself a headache going, how do I do this? Yeah. But I do agree with you. I mean, my wife's pregnant right now. I'll be a new dad in March. And I'm sitting there and she's going, oh, the baby's kicking me. Oh, this, that, the other. Right. And I'm just sitting there. Right, exactly. And I sit there. I don't even say anything, or I don't even do anything, but I agree with you. All I can do is put my hand on her stomach, or, just different things to where you're right. I don't. But if you be excited about it, or if you show a little bit, like, trust me, I've got someone going through, a friend of mine going through heavy legal problems right now that I've never dealt with in my life. But me saying, if you need to talk, I'm here. If you need someone to understand, if you need a helping hand, this is what I'm here for. And that's the sympathy and empathy. But also, I feel his pain. Yeah. Right. You know, so I think there's not an answer to that yet. I think it's all experience. That's okay. It's just something to be, I think, self-awareness in that scenario. So we have to have emotional intelligence, understanding people's needs and emotions, over just saying, hey, I get that, man. Just admit it that you got that DUI. You know, just admit that you did this and just be done with it. Yeah. Oh, it sounds great to say on our side, right? Right. Roy can sit there in Cincinnati and go, well, you guys just go driving. We're going, no, it's pouring rain outside. We can't. So, yeah, man, I don't think there's an answer to it yet. Yeah. All right, Patrick, where can people find you? Yeah, so I'm on all social media platforms. I've got a few different ones, so you can find me at The Patrick Kelly, The Patrick Kelly 85, Facebook, Instagram. You can find the Produce Industry Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, The Produce Pod. And like I said, type in The Patrick Kelly on Google. I'm the first one who comes up, and you can find me all from there, thepatrickkelly.com. Awesome, brother. Hey, we really appreciate you coming out here and weathering the storm, literally, to come hang out with us this morning. Great insight, great word. Thank you for offering that. And hey, if you're watching this and you want to be a guest on Word of the Week because you got a word, you can just send us the word, or like put it in the comments, or email it to us, or whatever, and we'll put it in a jar, or you can come be a guest on the show. So, all right, man. Sounds great, brother. Appreciate you. Roy, got anything for us, brother?
No, thanks for the great conversation, guys. It was a good one.
Heck yeah. Thanks, Roy. Man.
Bye.
All right, see you.